Welcome to the Community Well podcast. It is your host, Anna Ayubiojo. I'm so excited, y'all. We're back. Season 6. I keep wanting to say season 7. I've been doing like some B-roll here and there, and I keep wanting to say season 7. I mean, I think that's just a reminder that Holy Spirit's like, yeah, ma'am, season 6 and season 7 right after, because it was a little bit of a break, y'all. I'm not gonna lie. I've been working, okay? Behind the scenes, your girl's been putting in work. Yeah, we've been putting in work and we're gonna get into that. But I hope you're doing well. I'm excited that you're here. I'm excited that you're back. And if you're new, welcome to the Community Well Podcast Familia, the Community Well Familia, because the Community Well is growing and expanding. So welcome to the TCW fam. Y'all, okay, let's get right into it. So I'm fully transparent. I'm nervous right now, y'all, because there's so many changes going on, even with the podcast, just with myself, that I'm nervous. So today might be a little raw, scrappy. I don't know. Like, I was just thinking about that. We started the podcast 2019 was the first episode. I was big and pregnant. And I'll talk more about that too. But we launched in 2020. It's been 4 years. Um, I don't know. Maybe that's a good thing that I'm nervous. I care, okay? I care so much, and I'm also really excited. I know that is like my tagline. I'm so excited, but I am. I genuinely am. I would not say it if I was not excited, but I'm excited and I'm nervous. So we're gonna do this, all right? So y'all, lately, um, you know, I've been sensing that God has been, um, well, God has been doing this for a while. It's just a matter of me stepping into it. But really stepping into sort of honing in a little bit on my niche, especially when it comes to everything I do, ministry, business, the podcast, like all the things, whatever you want to call it. I call it my Jesus work, all that God calls me to do. Um, and it being about um building healthy Christ-centered families, right? When we started the podcast, like I said in 2009, I really just sensed like, hey, to start the podcast. And I started recording. I remember being in my office back then. I lived in Massachusetts, in Stoughton, Massachusetts. I was pregnant, and I knew at that time I'd be moving to Atlanta, Georgia, that God was calling us. But I was really just on a high level of obedience, because I was like, I just got to do everything that God has called me to. And I remember recording the episode in my office, but I never launched it. I never did anything with it. Fast forward to 2020. 2020, at this point, we're living in Atlanta. I have a new baby. The episode just pops up on my Apple Music. I swear, y'all, it just popped up. I was like, I didn't even publish this. Like, I don't even know what I still to this day don't know. And Holy Spirit just dropped it on on Apple Music. I don't know, but it just popped up. It popped up. My hair is puffing up. If you're looking on the, it's all right. But um, it literally popped up, and I was like freaking out, because I was like, now that episode's out there. Like, obviously, I didn't know what I was doing when I was recording and possibly uploaded it to, I don't know, scheduled it to upload in a year. It's still crazy to me how God will make it work if he wants you to do something, right? Anyways, that popped up in 2020, and I was freaking out and still sitting with these feelings of wanting to be obedient, but putting yourself out there, and especially what God has called me to do in terms of being transparent and vulnerable. Sometimes it can get to be too much, or just people not understanding, whatever, and still dealing with how are people going to see me, right? And caring what other people think. So then a friend of mine, she messaged me and she was like, God is saying, just do it. Just launch the podcast. And this is why it's important to have friends who are tapped into God, tapped into their gifting and all the things, because they'll be praying for you, interceding and all the things. And when God reveals something to them, they'll be obedient and just message you or call you. So my friend messaged me, and I was like, okay, I guess I just have to be obedient, because this is just too much confirmation. So when we started during the pandemic, it was a perfect time to talk about mental health. So we had people come in talk about um, how they had conquered mental health issues in whatever form, right? It was parenting, it was at work, it was in a variety of settings, and it was really dope. It is still really dope. Obviously, the episodes are still out there. And also how they were currently dealing with any mental health issues, challenges, and how they were overcoming and things like that. And so they would share their story, pour into the well, and they would take from the well. The idea is that we're in this together, and we're transparent, we're vulnerable, and ultimately leading everyone to the well that never runs dry, which is Jesus Christ, okay, which is God. It is just about pointing people back to Him and living in community, right? And so it's still that, except that we're honing in really, and God is so intentional now that I'm talking about it, because we went from recording with people and stories and kind of edifying people and these different subjects. There was the season right before my mom passed was about wives and moms, right? Then my mom passed, and y'all know I shut down for a year. And then when I came back, it was just me, week after week after week. And that was a stretch, y'all, because uh, it was just so, I won't even get into that about how, um, I guess I'll share a glimpse of the fact that I just feel, sometimes I feel a little insecure speaking. And I'm a speaker, I've been speaking for years, but how the enemy would lie, of course, and make me feel insecure now as I'm tapping into who he has called me to. You know what I mean? So I know that there's an aspect of what I do that applies to everyone. Like I know I post and it encourages from teenagers to older people, like about self-care, mental health, and all these things, or how I live my life, and whatever it is that applies to everyone. But there is a specific calling that I feel for wives and moms, marriages and families. And that is because of my own upbringing, which I'll share as well. But yeah, so we're honing in on providing resources for women, wives, and moms at the Community Well podcast, that is really equipping them with tools, resources, all the things that we need, that I felt like I needed, that I did get, but in different places, to be able to create atmospheres in our homes that will generate like the next generation of warriors, that will create children and marriages that are healthy, that are thriving and flourishing and not just surviving. I think that we've gotten used to sort of settling even in those spaces that we're just truly not thriving, and just we're in survival mode, and life is hard right now. So I get it. But we need more. We need to be equipped, and we need to, both in the spiritual and the natural, and we need community, especially if you are a cycle breaker. And those are my people, cycle breakers and curse breakers. Not everyone fits the same mold, but pretty much it's like being a first generation college student. You're the first one in your family to go to college. You're navigating college alone. You don't even know how to fill out a FAFSA. You don't even know, you know how to navigate the system. You don't even know even the application process, even moving in, feeling alone, and then feeling like people are getting care packages in college, and your family doesn't even know what you're doing in college, or how they're going to pay for it, or they're trying to survive, and all these different things. And it's like being a first generation wife and mom. You're learning things, and you're trying to do it differently than your parents did. And for some people are struggling to really admit things that their parents didn't do, because they feel like it's a form of betrayal, especially for a lot of our cultural people. We have different cultures, whether you're Haitian, Dominican, Nigerian, Jamaican, whatever culture, if you have some spice to you, there is a form that's been ingrained in us that lets us believe that it's a form of betrayal if you say anything against your parents. And in order to highlight the things that where they were possibly learning and growing because they were human, it doesn't mean you're bashing them, right? That's not what I'm saying. But with all that to say, is that there's a lot of gaps when it comes to cycle breakers. I feel like there's a set of people. To be honest, I've seen like a lot of non-believers that are all for breaking, cycles and all these different things, but they're missing God in it. And then there's a lot of believers that want to break generational curses in secret. And I'm not saying to put your business out there, but you're not bringing to the surface the things that need to be highlighted. You're not seeking the community. We're not talking about what's going on. So that's like a whole different stigma. And so that's a lot. That's a lot for like, as I'm talking about, I'm like, oh my God, it's a lot of work to really feel like you're fighting a battle with a lot of people that aren't really ready, but that's what I'm here for, right? And people that are ready, bringing together community and bringing together coaching and resources and all the things that are needed for us to have healthy Christ-centered families. We cannot let our children grow up in the same environments that we did. We can't let our marriages struggle and just survive and struggle in secret because we don't want to fully go there and open the door for one person or two people to go to war for you, that you don't have to fight this battle by yourself, not in your marriage, not for your kids, and then you're struggling and surviving. And you know there's life in fullness that God has called us to. God has called us to a life in full. And today, I really, it was just like an intro to the pivot that we're doing, but also me kind of getting back on assignment in another aspect, right? Like I got back on assignment with using my voice, and getting back on assignment with the podcast, but also with sharing my story. I feel like I got away from sharing my own story, and sharing other people's story is important, but how everything started was because of my own story. So I wrote my book, if you'll see in the video, um, From Survival to Greatness. Oh, this just made me emotional. Y'all, why am I crying? Jesus. I did not bring tissues because I didn't expect to cry. Um, Jesus. Honestly, y'all, it's God's goodness. When I hold this book, it's just not only everything I battled to get it published, but God's goodness and everything I have encountered, everything I've gone through, everything I've been through, everything I'm navigating and going through now, even like everything I know that He's calling me to that I'm, doubting myself, like all of it. God is just so good and so faithful. And it is, it just makes my heart swell that God loves me so much. God loves me so much to have been with me through everything, to have healed me, to have delivered me, to still continue to walk with me now. And just this morning, He was reminding me that I'm His daughter and that I am loved. Jesus. Mm. Um, and it's fuel for me to continue to keep going, because I know how I felt, the darkness of what I felt before when I was struggling with PTSD, severe depression, being a people pleaser, not knowing who I was and who I was called to be, and struggling in all those areas as a teenager, and then struggling, in college, and then struggling when I got married, and to the world, I seemed like I was happy. I seemed like I was okay, and I would just cry myself to sleep. And even when I was raising the boys and they were younger, just being in this place of survival mode. And, I look back at the strength that God gave me, because I look back at pictures and I'm like, I did a really good job of creating some good memories. And I'll be transparent, at that time it was because, my husband and we had issues. And so it's like, we would do a lot of things together, but he had a lot of like challenges in his health, and we had a lot of challenges. So there was a lot of things that I had to do by myself, that I had to step up by myself and be like, well, I want to go to the farm, and my husband doesn't want to go. So I'm going to get up and take him to the farm, feeling depressed, feeling exhausted, feeling all the things, and be like, I'm going to get up and I'm still going to create memories for these kids. I'm still going to do these charts and teach them how to be self-sufficient. Like, I think about all that, and it's nothing but the Lord. It's nothing but God, you know, and I just know how I felt navigating all of that and knowing that I have to keep going. Like if I'm being honest, I am growing right now in trying to deliver the story in a way that aligns with people. Um how do I say that? So I just want to share it with all the colors that it deserves so that people really know where I was, because I know there's some people that are still there, so that I can walk alongside them, because there's so much fullness, there's so much abundance, and I know that some people have the dark clouds that wake up with them, the anxiety that grips their chest, the all these thoughts that are looming through their head that are preventing them from being the mom they want to be, the wife that they want to be, them having the marriage that they want to be. And so I'm like, just trying to like put that together, because one thing is to write the book and then you got to promote it, and just continue to share your story. And how do I share it? How do I share that I was in a gang? And how do I share that I at one point I had two boyfriends, and one in one country and one here, because I struggled with my identity and feeling confident in myself. How do I share that I was, drunk most of a portion of my life because it helped with the pain. How do I share that, like, without just saying it, but like creating a story and illustrating a picture, you know what I mean? So that's what I'm like navigating right now, but I just mm, holding the book just did something for me right now, because God is so good and so faithful, and I needed that fuel, and also confirmation of where I'm headed. Because y'all know I'm out here living by faith. Like I'm a type A. I want to know all the things, and I can't say I know all the things. I just seek God every day. I'm like, what do you want me to do today? You want me to do what? Okay. you know? And sometimes I'm just like, I don't know. But when the pieces come together, it's like but yeah, anyways, ciao. We boohooing. It's just I didn't think I was gonna cry. Oh, sweet cheese. Hi, mommy's recording. I love you.
The package.
This is not mine. Can you take it back to Papa?
I put right here.
Okay, thank you. Can mommy finish recording? Say hi.
Hi.
But yeah, so that was Gigi girl. Um she escaped. She was like hanging out with my husband and the boys, or with Grayson, and she escaped to come find me. That's my little warrior in training, man. That girl, that's a whole different story. I prayed for that girl. I prayed for her, and she is me. I am her. It's a whole thing. Like, it's so interesting to see my personality in her, but the freedom that she has to be herself is next level. Anyways, where was I? Sorry, y'all. Um, but yeah, just holding the book, realizing what I've been called to do. Um, just really confirmation. And yeah, I'm beyond myself in terms of how far God has brought me. And you know, one of the things, like, I often think about, where I am now. And I think about just, I guess there's an aspect of me that has grown comfortable. There's a part of me that has grown comfortable and seeks comfort, just because I experienced so much in my childhood, experienced so much instability, so much abuse, so many different layers, that there's a part of me that just seeks comfort. And I can't confuse comfort for stability, right? Because I am stable, like God is our firm foundation. And so things will happen, things will come, but we're rooted in Him, so we will not be shaken. But being comfortable is different, because you're not striving for everything that God has for you. But there is a part of me that is striving, mostly in my head, and probably in the form of anxious thoughts, where I'm like, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do this, I have to do that, in terms of like, you know, I want to be further ahead than I am, because um mm, because of my family and the growth of my family. And just even like my son, we have 3 summers left with him, y'all. Like 3 summers left with him in this environment. Let me say that. Once, that last year, that summer before senior year, he's gonna be hanging out with his friends. Y'all know Grant. If you don't know Grant, he's a social butterfly. So I know he's gonna want to hang out with his friends, make memories and get ready for whatever's next. We say college, but we don't know what God has in store for him, right? So I feel like I'm limited with time, right? And I feel like I need to make, let me just keep it all the way 100. I got to make $1 million by tomorrow. And even the way I'm saying that, like I'm putting so much pressure on myself and even on my husband, because I'm like, I have to do all these things. I have a whole husband, like I have a partner. I have a whole thing that God has called me to, but I have these ideas and this pressure that I've placed on myself because of where I come from, that I just live sort of in this place of like having anxious thoughts while also seeking comfort because I've been through so much. I mean, it's a lot, right? Um, but like I grew up with a single parent, even though my dad that raised me, for those of you that don't know, um, my mom left a situation. She met a man who was my biological father. She got pregnant and she then left my biological father, and she said she was like crying um in her stairs 'cause she was 43 and she already had 4 kids. She didn't want any more kids. That was already the seed of rejection that was planted, that she didn't want any more kids. And so then, she had me and she met my dad. I call my dad that raised me. And they were together for a while. Um, but I pretty much grew up with a single parent because she made the decisions. I lived with her. My dad lived closer, so he was always around. But it was a weird dynamic. And looking back, I'm like, I mean, I should have asked more questions. But once, we lived together for a bit, then they got divorced and he moved out. It was really just my mom sacrificing and doing all the things. And a lot of pressure. We lived in the projects, we lived in a 2 bedroom, a lot of pressure to um, make it, right? We didn't grow up with a lot. At 12 years old, I noticed that and I started working. I worked like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. I worked in a bakery and I grew up in an environment that wasn't the safest, like it was gang infested. And so I wasn't allowed to go out. My mom was extremely, extremely strict. And when we talk about like dysfunction and we talk about toxicity and stuff like that, she didn't do it. Um, she didn't do it out of malicious ways. It was just her way of trying to protect me, right? And so I had to do whatever she said. I I had to be perfect. I felt like I couldn't be myself. I'm someone who is extra. I mean, I'm a lot. It's just like it's just extra in the form of like I talk a lot. I'm like when I laugh with my whole body. Like I just can't be like kiki. Like no, I'm like it's just like exaggerated, and I don't do it on purpose. It's just a me, right? Like it's just something about me that's extra, and I'm not like extra in the form of like jewelry and like wearing red and like that's not the extra that I am. Although I could pop off, but that's just not who I am. I'm just extra in other ways. Um, you know, and the way I think, my mind is constantly going. Like my husband looks at me, he's like, child, like I have these ideas and I have like, wouldn't this be amazing? And they're pretty dope ideas, let me tell you. But it's just like I'm constantly going and like, I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere, like whatever. So I'm a lot. And that was just not okay in the environment I grew up. It was like, you need to sit down somewhere. Okay. And you need to stop talking. And so it was just a lot of things that I encountered. And by the time, it was my mom and I was 12 years old and working, I already experienced, being abused at a young age. Um, and, I share a little bit more in detail in my book, and I'll link it as well. But feeling like I was too much. And so there was these lies that were planted, um, you can't be extra, you can't do too much. You need to just sit there, you need to be perfect. Um, and so growing up in that environment and then struggling with, what had happened to me, the abuse that I never shared with anyone, and then, having um severe depression and PTSD and having suicidal thoughts and, attempting against my life and attempting suicide in freshman year. There was two different occasions. Freshman year in my first high school, and I believe it was junior year. See, now it escapes me, but junior year in my second high school, and just also feeling like I was living like I didn't know who I was. So, in the forefront, I was someone who was a straight A student. I was a nerd. I was reading books. I had to, I couldn't go out. I loved reading them. Reading and just being like just academically just always striving, and I couldn't get anything less than an A, and being volunteering, being a leader in my community, being someone who gave back, being in all the clubs you can think about in my little town, Lawrence. But also behind the scenes, I was someone who was in the corner drinking 40s with the guys and getting drunk because I wanted to fit in, and pretending that like I know how to do stuff that I didn't know how to do. Y'all, I used to pretend like I knew how to play. I don't know if y'all know like handball, like it's a wall and with a little ball, and you would just hit it, and then the next person would like hit it. It's almost like volleyball, but it's like a little ball and you're hitting it against the wall. I don't know how to explain it, but it's handball. And I would pretend I knew how to play handball, but I didn't. Breakdancing back then was breakdancing was in back then. I remember one time, oh my God, y'all, this is so embarrassing. I was pretending I knew how to do like a headstand, and I was pretending like I fell practicing, and I put like a band-aid on my head. I may have even put like some fake blood under the band-aid to pretend, y'all. Hot mess express, because I wanted to fit in. I wanted to fit in so bad. And there's just like, yeah, no, it's just there's not a coordinated bone in my body to be doing a headstand like that. Or what was our playing handball? Anyways, like I wanted to be like, I think the version that I wanted to be was like almost like a tomboy, but like cute, like like Aaliyah-ish. Like Aaliyah could pull off like a tomboy look, but she was beautiful. I think that was probably the look I was going for, and the characteristic of being like, yeah, I don't know, y'all. And it was a lot. I just didn't know who I was. I wasn't allowed to be myself because that was too much. I wasn't allowed to like set boundaries. I couldn't have a voice. Like it was just so much that I was navigating that by the time I got older and, went to college, I was still struggling with these thoughts and unhealed trauma. Um, and just feeling like there's another family member. This is Grant. Mama. Yes. What? Sorry, y'all. All right, so that was great. Clearly, I need to wrap it up. But this is real life. I have to get season 6 done. I want to get season 6 done. I get to do the Community Well podcast, so it's just we're gonna deal with all the things. Um, but yeah, so going to college and being a first generation college student, then I'm navigating a whole bunch of stuff with, people having like, people that they can rely on, and, me not having anything. I remember my freshman year, my mom decided to move to the Dominican Republic, which I don't blame her. She was struggling with her health, and being in the warmth helped, right? And so everybody went, I don't know if it was Thanksgiving break maybe, or if it was Christmas break. It might have been winter break, but everybody left. Um, and there weren't a lot of people left on campus. I can't remember who was left, maybe like a sprinkle of us, because I was in a program with first generation students. So there was a lot of people that didn't have family or couldn't go back home. But I ended up getting kidney stones, and I had the worst pain I've ever experienced in my life, y'all. It probably was worse than giving birth, because at least I knew what was happening when I was giving birth. But I remember walking myself with that pain to the clinic and feeling so alone because I had no one to call to help me. When you have those difficult those difficult situations that you feel like you don't have family to call, it really hits you on how alone you feel, right? Because when you're breaking cycles and you're doing things, you can't relate to people on the same level. You have relatives, but you don't really have family. You don't have people, right? And I was just building, I mean, I had the people in my program, we were developing relationships that felt like family, but when you don't come from healthy connections, you don't know how to rely on other people. You only learn how to rely on yourself, right? And that's a lie of the enemy to make you think that even when you have people, that you have to do things on your own. So I walked myself to the clinic, and then after that, they were like, I went to the hospital. They took me to the hospital. And of course, I'm thinking about the bill. I'm like, what's this university going to charge me for taking me to the hospital? And by myself. It was a lot. But afterwards, they were like, why did you call us? Why didn't you let us know? But that's one of those things, that mindset that you need to learn, right? As a first generation and as a cycle breaker, is that you're not alone. And how do you ask for help? How do you reach out to people? Because then there's a lie that people, every time you reach out, people aren't there for you and all these different things. But just navigating all those little things throughout my life, and then getting married and realizing, my husband and I are both cycle breakers, and navigating um, in-laws, and navigating my family, and wanting our kids to grow up in something different. I mean, you name it. But then feeling like I didn't have anybody to talk to about the issues that happened in marriage, and things getting really bad where I was like, I don't want to do this. And because I came from such a toxic and dysfunctional home, I was ready to quit because I don't want my children to grow up in that. But the calling was staying in it. You are two human beings growing and navigating and healing and facing and confronting trauma. That is how you're going to break the cycle. And this may not apply to everybody, but some people just quit ahead of time because they thought that breaking the cycle meant they would need to leave. In some situations, I'm not talking about those if you're in an abusive, physically abusive marriage or something like that. I'm talking to the people that know that you shouldn't be quitting, that your assignment is to stay. I was just recently talking to a group of women about Ruth and the spiritual maturity and emotionally mature characteristic that it takes to be like Ruth and stay in the thing. Because Naomi told her, I can't have any more kids, you can go back to your people. And Ruth was like, no, I'm good. And Orpah said, okay, I'm good. I'm staying with you. But then the second time that it was presented, Orpah said, okay, bet, deuces, I'm leaving. I'm out of here. And Ruth not only said, am I staying with you? Your people will become my people. And we know everything that was said after that, that she declares that I am standing in this place. I'm staying in this place firmly planted with you, firmly planted in my assignment. I am staying with you. Okay. That is like a next level that you're like, I don't even know what's going to happen. I don't know what we're doing. What am I saying yes to? It doesn't matter. That was her assignment and she was staying in it, right? And for some of us, I know for me, the assignment in breaking the cycle is by staying in the environment and fighting through, because in the process, I've been developed spiritually as the warrior that God predestined for me to be, right? And I never, looking back on the years that were really hard in my marriage, I never thought that I would say this because I was ready to be out. I was like, this is how I'm gonna break the cycle, is me leaving. Even if they grow up with a single mom like I did, blah, 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 whatever, whatever. You know what I mean? So yeah, so just navigating all of that, and throughout the years feeling so alone, feeling like, I went to therapy and I had church and I had all these different things. Like I feel like my calling is to walk alongside women that felt like me, that grew up like me, that are navigating marriage, that may be struggling in their marriage, that may be struggling as a mom, that may be struggling as a woman, that you're breaking cycles, but you feel like it's not enough, or you're struggling with your mental health and all the different things. So my job is to stay planted in my assignment to walk alongside, these group of women so that we can raise up healthy Christ-centered families, so that we can do it together, because I'm still raising my family. I'm still raising my family. I'm still growing. I'm still developing. I'm still dealing with some residue. right? So that we can do this together because God has called us to live a life in full. He says that in John, is it John 10:10? Let me look it up real quick, y'all. But he's called us to a life in full. Like he doesn't want us to live these mediocre lives, right? And that's, John 10:10 says, a thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it in full. To have it in full. How many of us are settling for, residue and survival and, and we think we're walking towards thriving because we're following the rules and principles of the world, but we're missing the foundation. Is your foundation rooted in Christ? That is the part, is that this is the hard part. And I'm closing soon, but this is the hard part, is that we have to completely break down and demolish the foundation that was. I won't say completely because I don't want people to get the idea that I have to completely forget everything that I was taught growing up, everything. But I'm talking about the foundation. I'm not talking about forget who you are, your culture, forget your family, forget your. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying your foundation isn't in God. Your foundation is in something else. And you've been building and building and building, and you're building in vain because you're not building on the right foundation. And at the sign of the first storm, at the first sign of a little bit of rain, that thing is just like it's breaking down. You're like, I'm gonna quit this marriage. I'm gonna quit these. Like you start yelling at your kids, and you said you weren't gonna be yelling, and these little things are just eating away at what you've been building because your foundation isn't on God. We need a strong foundation. We need a strong foundation. And I'm hitting y'all with all the scriptures because we're building on God. I'm not just here, you know, I don't want to just inspire and motivate. Um, Matthew 7:24 through 27 says, therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house. Yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. Are you building on firm foundation? Are you building on the rock, on the solid rock? Because a lot of us have removed God unintentionally from, building our families. And we're like, we're going to therapy, we're doing all the things, but God is like, you're not letting me dig deeper. You're not letting me be your father and your mother. You're still allowing your family to control you. You're still allowing your family to make decisions for you. And again, I'm not saying this is where we need the intersection of faith and mental health, because I feel like there's a very worldly way of like, I'm gonna cut somebody off. And it's like, no, no, no. I'm not telling you to cut nobody off unless God has called you to go, no contact for a season, and God will lead you. But I am saying that your family shouldn't be making decisions for you. That the Bible doesn't say, okay, obey, children obey your adult children, obey your parents. Like a lot of people are operating like they're still children, obeying their parents. Their job was to raise us so that we can hear the voice of God, and God be the one that we're obeying now. And this is where dysfunction and toxicity comes in, because a lot of people still use that to manipulate adult children. And that's a really hard conversation that we're definitely going to have. Episode 2, we're going to start getting into the importance of just being spiritually mature and how you manage that and how you handle that. And that's not an easy situation, because you want to honor your parents, you want to honor your mother and your father, but honoring isn't the equivalent of obeying like you're a child. Your job is to obey God. And sometimes those things are not in alignment, especially if your parents aren't saved, or if they're more religious than they are, really believers and followers of Christ. And we'll talk about that as well. but it's important to identify what is your foundation on, right? I noticed my foundation wasn't on God. I was doing the Christiany things. My foundation wasn't. Our marriage wasn't. Our family wasn't. We were just doing the things and knowing the scriptures, but we were not growing spiritually mature to allow God to lead our lives. And so that's a lot, but we're making this pivot, and I wanted to share my story because I believe that it was important to share, to start off with that. I feel really felt led to start off with how do we get here, right? As you guys walk this journey with me, I'm always telling you I'm very transparent as I'm figuring this out, that I'm going to be open, transparent, and vulnerable as much as God leads me to of how we're doing this, where we're going. Um, and also knowing that this season, I'm so excited what you can expect for this season. We'll be talking about all the dimensions of wellness, and we'll have people share their stories as well as having experts come in. So for example, we'll share about financial wellness, and we'll talk about people sharing their struggles when it comes to navigating their finances. When you don't come from money, you don't even know how to budget, how do you do that? And then having an expert come in so that we can have tools. I want us to be inspired, to be motivated, to know that we're not alone, but I also want us to be equipped practically. How are we going to do things differently in order to raise our families to be well, and to live in fullness and abundance, because that's what God wants us to do. So that's it, y'all. I love y'all so much. I hope you will, if you're new, please join us, subscribe, follow the new page on Instagram, which is the Community Well. I have separated that a little bit from just Ana Tibisay Ojo from ATA. So please follow that. Please share this episode, review. Please leave a comment. It's a way that people will find us. You know how algorithmy stuff works. So please help, subscribe if you see it on the YouTube channel, and just do all the things. That's my ask. And also leave a comment. Let me know. Does this resonate? How do you feel about the new season? And I'm so excited, y'all. Season 6. I'll see y'all next week. Love y'all. Bye.